Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming back to our webinar on moving forward, navigating a social life with TBI. Joined with a few of my survivor panelists today. They couldn't all make it, but hopefully we'll have Calvin Cook, Mateo Treetop, and Michele Kauffman back with us today.
Calvin is here, by the way, Austin.
Oh, great. Today's webinar is primarily going to be practical. What I want to do is I'm not going to talk at you. I'm going to try and have a discussion with you and our panelists, specifically about the things that you can do for the survivors in your lives, or if you're a survivor, to help others, to help you move forward in your lives with TBI. Just to go over what we discussed last week. First, the idea of TBI sociality and why it's important. Remember, the sociality is the social relationships, both the kind and the quality of all those social relationships and the difference that it can make in survivors' lives. Then I led you through what I call the social life of TBI, which is my NSF-sponsored doctoral dissertation at the University of Arizona that really looks at what survivors' lives are like in the years after they have left rehab. So long after biomedicine has come and had its way with our bodies and our minds, what our lives are like and what we do. And the thing that I found, as I explained in the intro to last week's webinar, was that significant others, or rather the people who are there in the right times, in the right ways, or in the wrong ways, that really make the difference in our lives, that makes the difference as we move forward. In other words, they're not just any others. They're not just significant others. There are significant others that really help to define what our lives with TBI are like. And also, they live with TBI, maybe not in the same way that we do, but equally important and impactful for their lives. Everyone is part of this. And we all can work with each other to really help ourselves move forward and help make our lives better. So I said that I would give you some practical tips, and I want to give you some advice for how to be a good SO. And this is part of a separate session on allyship that I'm developing for the ACL in another arena. But I wanted to share these with you because they're good tips for being a significant other for a traumatic brain injury survivor. And the first one of these is observe with humility. When you're with a TBI survivor, you need to pay attention to what they're doing and what others are doing to them, what the environment possibly can be interacting with them in such a way that is making a difference in their lives at that moment. And then if you notice a need, ask if they need or want help. If it's appropriate, meaning that there are times when they may need help, but they don't necessarily want it, in which case it's not a good idea for you to ask if they need help if you're positive that they might not want it. It's always a good idea to ask within reason. So, but you know the survivor, and every survivor is different. If you've seen one TBI, you've seen one TBI at one point in time. So it might not always be appropriate to ask, but when it's appropriate, always make the effort to ask if they need and want help, because sometimes survivors may need help, but they don't want it, in which case, if you gave them help in those situations, it might actually make things worse. Then once you've asked, listen to survivors and hear what they have to say. Don't just passively listen and then do what you were expecting or thinking was going to need to be done beforehand. You need to react to what they say, take it in with, again, that humility to understand that what they have to say to you might not be what you expect. You should accept that their experience is not the same as yours or your perspective on their experience. They have a much closer relationship to what they're living through than you do. Be humble, take them at their word, accept that their experience is not the same as yours, and then offer to help without drama or complaint. Sometimes it's useful to help without asking. Sometimes but only do so that they feel supported and not harassed. In other words, if you just barge in there and help without being asked, then you might make things worse again. It might offend them. That might cause problems that you did not expect. Always ask, always offer to help, always listen to what it is that they're saying. And finally, rinse and repeat. Because as I said, if you've seen one TBI, you've seen one TBI at one point in time, meaning that for each survivor, it might be different. In fact, in many cases, it will be different next time. And if they want help at one point in time, they might not want help the next point in time. Be respectful of that possibility. And always remember that living with TBI, it's context dependent. It changes, it shifts. It is, as I say in my dissertation, it's fungible, because TBI does not always have the same meaning in survivors' lives at the same time, at all times. So that's it. I'm not going to talk at you anymore. I know that you will want to hear from us what we think, and we want to hear what you think. So what I would like is, if you can, while we are discussing, if you have questions, if you have comments, type them in the chat or raise your hand, and we will unmute you or we will read your comment so that everyone can benefit from what you have to say, and those of us on the panel here can respond. Our first discussion topic is positive experiences in survivors' lives. These are positive experiences as defined by survivors, not as defined by administrators, not as defined by family members, as defined by survivors. So my question for you that I would like you to discuss is, how can others help survivors have positive experiences as they move forward? Let's start with the panelists, just because, I imagine people are a little nervous about speaking up. So let's start with our panelists first. If one of you can chime in and say how you have been helped, or you have helped other survivors to have positive experiences as they move forward.
Can we bring Calvin up so that I can see him? I'd love to go. I'm Michele Kauffman, and when I first got hurt, I got enrolled with University of Washington TBI Model Systems. They had what was called a LIFT program. It had been around a while to help all people in different kinds of recovery, but Dr. Jesse Fan there wrote it into LIFT, Life Improvements Following Traumatic Brain Injury. It was so simple. It was remembering what really just made you happy before your injury, and when you could still do everything that you wanted to, whether it was easy as going to the library, a walk, or having a cup of coffee with a friend. And this program lets you take simple little steps just to get back to have that cup of coffee one time for 5 minutes. And you grew on that from there to where you could actually meet somebody and have a cup of coffee, being able to get out one-on-one, and taking back the things that you can do, because so often we hear about everything that we can't do anymore and how we're going to fix all that, to really be able to get that kind of a funny thing. The LIFT program, what you can do a little bit at a time, to me, was when I didn't really believe that I could go out and join a friend for a cup of coffee on an afternoon I'd planned a week in advance. I got there in a short amount of time, and I love to share that with other people just as a start point. It was a real easy one for me to get going.
Kelvin, do you have anything you'd like to add about how others have helped you, or how you've seen others help survivors have positive experiences in their lives?
For me, I would say that a lot. I have been encouraged a lot by just being in community with others who have disabilities and learning from them. As I mentioned last week, for me, it has been helpful to just see how others are living out their life with a disability. And that has shown me that there is a possibility in me doing it as well. So the more that I can involve myself in the community, the more that I am encouraged. And I would encourage others to try and get out there more. And there's a lot of great communities out there.
And thanks, Calvin. Before we open it up to the rest of the audience, I totally agree. Community is probably the most significant thing that can help survivors. I found it. Calvin found it. I know Michele found it because she actually found it in many cases in Seattle. And it makes all the difference for survivors to have others around that understand and that will do what I just said about asking, observing, respecting the fact that their experience might be different. Speaking of difference, I would love it if anyone from the audience would offer any positive experiences that they have had in helping survivors move forward.
Well, while we're waiting for somebody, I'd like to go on for just one more second and say, after I could get myself out and sip my coffee without spilling most of it down my front, I ran right into an organization that was a community sponsored through our state called Seattle Brainworks, where we came every day as a family and we learned to be together. That's where, watching the other survivors, I learned how to wait in line and then take my turn to speak, stop when I was supposed to stop, participate on a team, agree to disagree, go home and come back the next day. It was kind of like kindergarten for me because I'd lost so many of those social skills. And I had to do that for a couple years before I could actually branch out to lead the support groups I spent a lot of time going. But getting back into that community, the senior center I went to one day a week regular, I made friends, they accepted me. Being out where people can understand you and you can be heard, I think is a main way to grab part of your life back.
I see that Danielle in the chat said that finding programs that the family could participate in with my grandfather who had a TBI, which allowed them to learn skills to be helpful to him and become part of the community with him. I wholeheartedly agree. I've tried to draw my own family, as they can attest to, into the TBI community. And I believe very strongly in it's not, brain injuries happen to families. And so the whole family can be a part of the community and the support system that the survivor develops. Margarita asks, where do we find programs for young adults in Phoenix apart from Ability 360? Calvin, do you know of brain injury specific organizations in Phoenix they could work with?
No, I am not familiar with any TBI support groups. I am a part of two self-advocacy groups that have individuals of a mixed variety of disabilities. I can list their names in the chat, but when it comes to specifically TBI, no.
Margarita, I know of one in particular, the Brain Injury Alliance of Arizona, which is actually works at Ability 360, could be a big help in finding those different organizations as well. And you can visit them at biaaz.org. And for anyone from other states on the call, there are several, not every state has a brain injury alliance. Some have brain injury associations. They're a bit different, but they were similar. Look online for them. You will find them. I know in Washington, I have worked with the Brain Injury Alliance of Washington, just like I've worked with the Brain Injury Alliance of Arizona down here, which actually leads into the next question for the discussion topic, which is what services, organizations, or resources help survivors have these kinds of positive experiences. And I would throw a shout out to the Brain Injury Alliance of Arizona and also Washington right now, because they were a big part of helping me find these experiences in the years after my injury. Calvin or Michele, do you want to share anything about services or organizations or resources that you used or that you have suggested to other survivors they use?
I can go first. So for me, I usually refer individuals to Ability 360. That's usually my go-to. And then I do refer them to either of the groups that I am part of, which I will be listing in the chat right now. But that's usually my go-tos.
Thanks, Kel. Here in Washington State, we have a Washington State Advisory Council, which lists all online support groups, and they also hold their own generic type support groups for each kind of disability, but they have many for brain injury. They're usually later in the evenings, in the afternoons. BIAWA, Brain Injury Alliance of Washington, has been spectacular in their effort to support Washington State support groups. Are all listed on their website. Again, Austin said, biawa.org. And that's where people find Joel and I listed as TBI groups, where we do the weekly Zoom and support groups. But we refer each other. But everybody who calls into us independently, we immediately refer to the BIAWA for their resource line and for them to connect up with other groups, because it's so important. We love our support groups. We do 20 hours of Zoom a week. We meet in person weekly, and we have a newsletter, but we're not for everybody. We're a family lovey-dovey kind of group. Some people like a business group, some people like a medical group. And so there's all sorts of different ones to pick from on there, and we list them to everybody. We encourage everybody to try several before, they really settle into one they like, and it's okay to go to a whole bunch of them. But because of BIAWA, Joel and I got to lead the first support group at Harborview. They encouraged us because they saw us attending in regular attendance. They're born to make leaders down there. And so whether it's your city, state, your local agency, give them a call, see what they have to offer you. Lots of them, you can volunteer, whatever you're ready for. The agencies are just there to help you. And then there is the global brain injury awareness, globalbia.org in the sky, where they're helping everybody in the world. We'll make sure you get all these websites, but reach out and get yourself some help from home or in person. It's the best.
Also, thank you, Michele. That reminded me, Margarita, we have a governor's council on head and spinal cord injuries here in the state of Arizona that Anne, who may be on the call, could speak to you about. But they have several resources listed on their website that you can find. I see a hand raised from a phone.
You can unmute now. And that's *6. There you go.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, Dr. Duncan. This is Ann Tarpey from the Governor's
Hi,
Council on
Ann.
Spinal and Head Injury. How are you, Dr. Duncan?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, and thank you for doing this today. Yes, there is a Governor's Council on Spinal and Head Injuries, and we do provide funding to the IAAZ and the Spinal Cord Association to provide resource facilitation as well as outreach events and educational conferences. And then the council does provide educational sessions, both for parents, survivors, for professionals, to educate them about brain injuries. So those are the kinds of services. But for resources, certainly your best resource to find resources is the BIAAZ, and they do have their resource directory online. So that's a great thing. And they have wonderful support groups. And I think they're kind of all kinds of support groups. As Michele was saying, different people need different things. So is there anything else you want me to add, or Dr. Duncan?
That was wonderful. Thank you very much. Again, everyone, I
Not a
would
problem.
strongly recommend in Arizona, looking at that website. You will find a lot of different resources listed there, listed at the Brain Injury Alliance. It's a wonderful resource for you. Now let's move on to our next topic, which is negative experiences, again, as defined by survivors. So my question for the panelists and also for the audience is, what have you found helps survivors, or in the case of Michele and Calvin, helps yourselves through negative experiences? What helps you to move forward after these negative experiences?
Other survivors. That is the main thing. I don't think you can really suffer a brain injury and not go through some sort of depression. When your rug is jerked out from underneath you, your life has changed. Every life has changed for everybody you know because of what's happened to you. You get a certain amount of grief I don't think they really prepare us for, which leads us into all sorts of depression, which slides us down all of our bad chimneys that lead us into our undesired behaviors and our hurting ways. And so I keep a real check on other people and my own mental health daily and my destructive behaviors, because where I'm not helping people and getting out and be accountable and being seen, it's really easy when the negative thoughts slip in to play along with them and give up. Where you just put a little more hope in there from some other survivors, you make a phone call, you go to a group, you reach out to somebody else, and the day can pass and tomorrow's another day. And hopefully it'll bring better thoughts. But it's a real thing with the brain injury, is to come along with the depression and other issues.
Yes, definitely. I would say that just knowing that others have been able to overcome is definitely encouraging for me. And that has been helpful to just remind myself that if others have done it and are doing it, then I can continue to survive.
Mhm.
And my family and friends, again, overall, just the community, being involved with my community, and where I know I have been encouraged before, returning back there to re-energize and get back out there has been the best resource for me.
Thanks. I would second both of those. And other survivors help. I found that others in the disability community as a whole very much help. No, their experiences aren't the same as ours, but none of ours are exactly the same as each other's. And knowing that there are people out there who face similar difficulties, especially similar social difficulties, helps, and being in communion with them. I see we have a hand raised from Sergey Emilianov. Do you want to, Jeff, can you allow them to unmute?
Yes. You should get a prompt now, Sergey.
Got it. So my thing is, yes, it's all about communities, and not only communities, but the people that you met and the society you are inside, right? And for me, sometimes, not sometimes, almost every time, when I see group of people talking, group of people thinking, the way they react on each other's conversations, right? The way they act, the way they think, the way they come up with ideas, it all feels so odd to me, like all those guys are from other planet. But it's not only about one group, it's about everyone, right, on this planet. So basically speaking, I am feeling that people are not normal, the way they talk and communicate. And it's very hard because like they think it is normal, definitely, right? And I cannot find myself among any company, basically speaking, because I can if I pretend to be like them, but I don't feel right. That's it from my part.
Okay, thanks very much. I think that's very true. Again, all of us survivors have different experiences, and our experiences are in turn different from what they were before Andrew's or what other people in our lives will be. So again, that humility and that acceptance that others won't have the same experience as you is really important. But then being there for them, even though they have different experiences and different bases than you. I see a comment from Betty in the chat that says, I attended a conference this week from Mercy Care, and it was around mental health and brought forward the concept of personal medicine, which refers to something you do that helps your situation, such as mood, behaviors, ability to live productively. I really think personal medicine can apply here as well. I'm so glad to share the resources and information from this conference with anyone who might want them. Please email her at bschoen@azdes.gov. And a special disclosure, sharing resources is one of her personal medicine activities. Thank you very much, Betty. Yeah, I think personal medicine is a big part of it because, you know, survivors don't always have others around them to help them cope with things. They need to find ways, personal ways to deal with it. They also need to find ways to develop new friendships, to be those significant others who can help them through downtimes. And as I mentioned last week, some of the biggest problems that survivors face, and we know this as pure, hard, cold data from around the nation and the world, survivors live with an inordinately high burden of poverty, social isolation, and homelessness. Again, making up over 50% of homeless populations are TBI survivors in most cities where this research has been done. And of course, suicide is a top cause of death for TBI survivors. So knowing this, my question for the panelists and for everyone out there is, how would you help a survivor dealing with one of these situations?
I'll start. We've lost several members of our group in the past couple of years, sadly. And one thing that I've learned, and from talking to their family members and loved ones, is to perhaps stop asking, how are you? Because lots of times they don't know and they don't know the answer. And like me, when they don't know, they smile and nod. And instead ask, are you okay? Because at that point, you have a chance to either look in their eyes or hear in their voice that maybe things aren't okay, even if they tell you yes. And chances are they may tell you no, but they may at that same time know that you're a person that they can talk to if they can, or maybe you can get more information out of them. But instead of just saying, how are you, and running by it, like, how was the weather? To take time to listen to what they say and ask more questions. Because lots of times our friends who are hurting don't know why or how bad they're hurting until it's too late. Yeah, and I'll read it. Fine, thank you is a socially acceptable answer to that. Yes, thank you, Betty. Sorry. It is. And it's what we're supposed to say. We think people don't care and nobody's got the time to listen. But if you ask your friend, are you okay? And they say no, you could probably do a follow-up. So That's the first thing that I. Thank you, Austin.
Yeah, I would agree that listening is the most important in those moments. Yeah, I would ask them, as Michelle mentioned, I would ask them, are they okay? And I would want to know, I would ask them, what can I do for them? I would want to know how I can help them. And I would just wait for them to respond. And I would really want to listen to their needs. And I would do what I can to help them. And anything I cannot help them with, I would try to encourage them to reach out to a community that might be able to help them in the ways I can.
Very good. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Galvin. I see lots of comments in the chat and they're all right on. Betty, don't ask the question if you aren't prepared to listen to the answer. Exactly. There's just one thing that I will add here, and I'll tell this from my own experience, and this is published in some papers that I've written. So I was presenting on actually the first three of these: poverty, social isolation, and homelessness at a conference in Vancouver several years ago. And one of my research participants was dealing with suicidal ideation at the time. And they were threatening over the internet to commit suicide. And what helped, according to them after the fact, was the fact that they wrote an email to me that woke me up in the middle of the night at my hotel room at this conference. And I listened to their answers and tried to speak as honestly as I could in a way that was respectful of what they told me, not taking my own position on what they should do, but listening and then just offering fellowship. I, of course, was, hundreds of miles, if not thousands of miles away. I couldn't actually help do anything for them, but I could at least be there to listen and respond with love and affirmation to what they were saying. And they did live through the night. And really being there as a significant other doesn't always mean being intrusive. It sometimes means just being there and listening. I can't underline that enough. You do need to listen to what the survivor is telling you. So if that's all right, and I hope I was okay with everyone who posted in the chat. I saw a lot of chats. They were very, very helpful comments. Yeah, I like that. Give them a virtual hug. I did. I literally actually did say that. I am sending you an email hug in the middle of the night. Danielle, I also want to respond to Danielle, who asked, would care coordination to help TBI survivors link up with community housing behavioral health services upon discharge from the hospital with TBI injuries help this process? Yes, but from my experience, and this is my experience, my understanding of it, the things that when poverty, social isolation, homelessness, and suicide come up, often isn't right after the hospital. So it's related to things that have happened in their lives in the years since. And so really there's no one way to address this problem, but connecting them with, again, the TBI community outside of the hospital, like immediately after they leave the hospital, then connecting them with the TBI community that they don't have to start attending support groups right away, just letting them know that the community is here and that there are literally millions of us in the US with them, I think could help quite a bit. Okay, and now let's move on to our third discussion topic, which is how to improve survivors' circumstances. For our panel, but then also for the audience, I want to ask, how have you sought to help survivors improve their lives? Or Calvin and Michele, how have others helped you improve your lives? Thinking about through employment or employment supports, through relationships or relationship supports, and through community, which I know we've been talking a lot about. Feel free to underline the point one more time.
All righty, Calvin's not muted, so I'm just going to jump in here. We have 2 agencies in Washington, not so sure about every state. We have standard DVR, the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. I didn't understand it being brain injured at first. I have a husband that works, so I qualified for nothing. I fell completely through the gaps, and I was absolutely certain they wanted me to fill out a financial form. So I figured that meant I was just out, and I said, I can't do that, and I never tried for years. Come to find out, they'd retrain Bill Gates if he hit his head. It's for everybody. The financial form was if I needed them to pay for schooling or hearing aids or clothes or a bus transfer. That's DVR, the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. We also have up here NVSU, and that is the Neurological Vocational Services Unit, which caters to people with neurological issues. It's right by Harborview. It's right by the Brain Injury Alliance of Washington. You can go to either one. They're both free, but they actually specialize in helping people, help you get a case manager, or we call an employment contractor, to help you gain employment once you have the skills that you need. It's a wonderful program. And like I said, mistakenly, I thought they wouldn't take me, but they take everybody. Unfortunately for me, you guys have seen me on good days. I can't make a regular schedule 5 days a week at their given times. I could work 40 hours a week, but it's got to be my 40. And the end cap game for me came when BIAWA started a volunteer program where I could go and get there on time and practice my skills. If they don't have one in your area, maybe you can help get one started, because that worked me into an internship. It was only 3 hours a week, but gosh darn it, I knew I could show up on time and get through 3 hours at a time. So check with your local agencies to volunteer if you're not quite ready to take a job yet. But getting out there, dressing up, showing up every day on the same time, that's the hardest part. It takes a lot of practice. Lots of people to help.
In my situation, a vocational rehab has been very helpful. But before I got involved with them, I was working at Southwest Institute for Families and Children. They are a nonprofit that assists individuals with disabilities. And I got involved with them through the Phoenix Workforce Program, which I don't think it has anything to do with disabilities, but I was going through one of their programs and I met an individual there who was working at Southwest Institute for Families and Children. And that's how I got involved with their self-advocacy group. And that's how I learned about them. And that's why I mention them now, because I'm actually still, I'm still connected with them, and I'm good friends with their director, George Garcia. He's an individual with a disability. And they actually, they assisted me with some career exploration. They work with vocational rehab in doing that. And then another organization that comes to mind is actually the organization that I am employed at now part-time. And that is Diverse Ability Incorporated. They do a lot of great things for the youth with for youth with disabilities. Mateo mentioned their name last week, and they have a summer program for youth that's actually happening right now. Every summer, we work with 5 of the counties. I believe it's 5. And yeah, we have like a 5-day conference for youth 14 to 29 years old. And it's really cool. We were doing it only online because of COVID, but now we're transitioning back to in person and online. But yeah, those are my 3 picks.
And also, Danielle, to respond to your point, and Michelle can talk about this too. I know that I was treated at Harborview Medical Center in Seattle, which is Seattle's Trauma One Hospital Medical Center, as was Michelle. We met there, as a matter of fact, although long after both of us had long after I had my injury, and relatively soon after Michelle had her second injury, if I remember correctly. And they do a wonderful job of connecting individuals after they're released from the hospital with a packet of information. Yes, there are some things that are lacking in that packet of information, but they do give it to them, and they do connect survivors with support groups. I think it really depends on the hospital. Michelle, do you have experience with this that you could share?
Swedish, other ones for strokes. Most of them have their forte. I believe at Harborview, the bag at the end of that bed does come from Brain Injury Alliance of Washington. I had a social worker and a support group worker and everybody writing into that bag. Unfortunately, I couldn't read for years. So by the time I got to that bag and could actually understand what it said in there, I had already found them. But when you're in the major hospitals and when you get that kind of help, you do get a chance to be hooked up with those type of resources. And if you have the capability to get online and find places like Global Brain Injury Awareness and other places that have the resources that are listed there to help you, and referrals for doctors and schools and work, it's one thing. But some people, we hope that someday everybody will get met at the end of their bed or at their referral at their doctor's office, which their own social worker, to carry them through all of their days. That'll be part of our advocacy here. Just one, not one for DVR, not one for the hospital, not one from your church, not one from your school, and one from your job, but just one that knows you. And then when they retire, pass you to somebody else, so that you'll know when it's best to go to school, what all the options are in your local area, and how to get anything you need from food to housing.
And I would also add that we need to involve the families and significant others in that process too. They need to be informed. Really, I don't think we as a society do a good enough job of spreading the help and support that survivors need to not just survivors, but the people around them. Because as Michelle did, I know I did as well, I couldn't read when I left the hospital. I tried. I had double vision that had not been fully corrected. I mean, I still have double vision, but I wear glasses that actually resolve that double vision. But I couldn't read. If I didn't have people around me who knew to read that stuff and tell me about it, then I wouldn't ever have known about it, even if I had that bag. So we as a society, I think, need to really do more. And then being mindful of the time. Oops. I wanted to open it up to our last discussion topic for the day, because we only have a few minutes left, which is all of you in the audience, please ask any of us any remaining questions you might have about our lives, the positive and negative experiences we've had, and the significant others who have helped us have those.
I'll talk for just a second till you guys get some other questions together, because this is really touching my heart lately. I didn't learn. It's been over a decade since my first injury, and nobody ever let me know that the me that I was missing, that was, all that iceberg under the water that just kind of kept popping up. Nobody let me know that I could ever get back there, and that there was a path to it, that I was the captain of my ship and I could retrain my brain. I got graduated from all of my therapies, and I thought, well, what do I do now? I just kind of went home and sat in my room and thought, well, that was neat. Everybody was helping me. But I met people, especially Annie Ricketts at Global BI, who's teaching us we're the captain of those brains. We can retrain them. We can take our ships back over. We can treat them like injured children with kindness and gratitude when they do anything right, talk out loud, pat ourselves on the back, and retrain that brain to do exactly what we want it to, because we ask it to have direction, to tell it all the gratitude of being thankful, to stop trying and say, I am brain. This is what we're doing today. Thank you for helping me with that. And at the end of the day, look back like the big observer and pick one thing that might have gone wrong and re-practice it in your brain for a while till you get it right. We have hope, we have chances as long as we have breath. So don't give up, get to a support group, keep reaching out, stay positive, because that negative place is an easy place to fall and a hard place to land. So thank you for doing this. Austin, we hope you have questions that we can help you with. And I know Austin will make us available to you if anybody has questions later. We're grateful to be here because this is how we're growing our brains. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. And everyone, please, if you have any questions related to anything we've talked about, not just today, but also last week, please, this is your chance to speak to real survivors who are, so to speak, out and proud about it, and that we are the ones who are trying to make a difference for the communities and our survivors. Well, nobody is suggesting as adding anything, so I can talk. I can always talk about brain injury. One of the things that is the most key in my experience is that, again, going back to the same thing, others are the difference that has made the difference in both positive and negative ways. But just because one person is there in the right time, in the right ways, doesn't mean they're not going to be there at the wrong time, in the right times, in the wrong ways, or they're just not going to be there the next time. It does help to have a variety of individuals do this. And it's quite a lot for any one person to deal with this. It really helps if we have the entire community helping, working with survivors. And I don't mean every single person in the community, but I mean a significant community of individuals around survivors. And that is why the idea of community as being the answer for everything is a bit of a trope. It gets bandied around a lot, and I don't necessarily like it for that reason. But as I actually presented on in Seattle at Michelle's Life Improvement Following Traumatic Brain Injury Conference, community is the one thing that we can really do for each other that helps brain injury survivors move forward. Doesn't mean that we're always going to be there at the same time, in the right ways at the right time, because we're human. We all, brain injury survivors and non-brain injury survivors, have the same issues that pop up that can stop us from doing what we know that we need to do. Be patient with yourselves. Be patient with each other. If you're a survivor, realize that these things, the sequelae and also your social interactions, are going to be difficult to deal with it sometimes. That's okay. Give yourself a pass. Don't always push yourself to be who you thought you were before. Chances are pretty good that that person that you thought you were wasn't exactly as great as you think they actually were. But it's also the chance that it doesn't matter. You are who you are now. And as an individual, you're valuable. You're a person. And so give yourself and your loved ones, your significant others, patience and credit, and they should give the same to you. I see that Katie said she has no questions. Danielle says, thank you so much for the knowledge. Everyone, I suppose we can close a few minutes early if there really are no questions. I just want to reiterate how appreciative I am of Michele and Calvin and Matteo, who couldn't be with us today, for everything that they added to this panel. Oh, I see a hand from Sergey. Sergey, Jeff, can you allow Sergey to speak?
Yes,
Yep.
guys, I have a question. How do I recognize when sometimes, let's say, when I'm in conversation saying something, or I'm just have specific thoughts, how do I know if that the reason of the TBI or it's just the person I am?
My honest answer to that is the person with TBI is who you are. You are living with TBI. You're not reducible to your TBI at all, but the TBI can come up in your conversation. I can't say for sure exactly how you can tell if it's TBI or not. I know that this happens to me literally every single time that I talk, because I can often lose my train of thought, forget the words that I have. Aphasia comes up and I have problems getting my thoughts out of my mouth. And I'm never sure if it's TBI. I just acknowledge that it's possible that it could be TBI. And when I tell people, I say, this may happen to me sometimes. Please just bear with me and work through it. Just trying to ask them to extend you the same patience that I think that you should extend yourself. Not whether or not it is TBI isn't really that important. It could be TBI, it might not be. It's something that you deserve patience with, and other people need to give you patience with.
I see, but you see, in this case, basically speaking, every time I'm starting the new conversation with somebody, I have to warn them first. Hey guys, I used to have a TBI, so I might be a little bit weird sometimes.
Yeah.
But if I don't say it before, then they will behave the way they're supposed to behave, right? If they see some weirdness in the speech.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time. Calvin, Michele, do you have something you want to say?
No, I was responding to a chat. Thank you though. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just I would encourage that and have patience, and I know me personally, I just practice having patience, and one way that I'm able to push through I'm not sure what to call it. Maybe it's irritation of having to repeat myself. One way that I'm able to push through it is by just looking at it as practice, and as a what do you call it? An opportunity for growth. That's how I look at it, and yeah, that's what helps me.
Nice. It practice and it's timing. I still practice everything I say in my head before I say it, because the words come out jumbled and I can't find them. And the more I do it, just the quicker I can, because the better I get at saying it. But I still practice every sentence in my head because I feel silly when I do it wrong. And I need to say just one more thing before I go. I wanted to bring Joel here today for a minute. He had to be someplace else just so y'all could feast your eyes on my SO. And after I left last week, I thought, wow, I bet these guys thought we are just wholly codependent. And it doesn't have to be like that with you and your SO, even if it is your BFF, because you have your own lives and you have your own wills and your own superpowers. But together, we truly made one person when we couldn't stand independently on our own 2 feet, but we were holding hands, looking in the same direction. We needed each other, and we still need each other. But you want to be careful, because when you get that close on somebody, it could easily fall into codependence. We were more of just like a really happy crutch.
Thanks, Michelle. Sergey, I suppose we need to go, but I will just say I was smiling when you were talking because I hear you. I ask that question all the time. You're totally in good community with people when you say that, because I deal with that all the time. I'm still trying to figure it out. I have, my supervisors working things, and I always say, oh, you don't need to bring your TBI up so much. I'm trying to find the right solution to that. And I don't know that there is a right solution. It depends on the context, the interaction. And I think, as Michelle said, it's just practice, and you learn how to do it better than you used to. I used to bring it up every single time to talk to someone. I realized now that, no, I don't need to bring it up every single time to talk to someone. I still do need to bring it up many times, because a lot of people will not understand from my interactions or my words or my expressions or things like that, that they don't mean what they think they mean, because I do have a brain injury that affects my communication. And it just takes practice. You just give yourself patience and demand it of others. Demand that others give you patience. I would love to tell you there's a right answer. I can't actually say, because I'm not sure. Anyways, everyone, the time is up. I want to thank you so much for coming out for both of our sessions. It was a wonderful session. Thank you very much to my panelists, Calvin and Michelle and Mateo, who couldn't be here. I am so appreciative of everything that you've done and everything that you are continuing to do. We are all moving forward together. We are all in community together. And hopefully we will be the difference that makes the difference in each other's lives. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a wonderful day. Please fill out the survey again if you can. And both recording to both of our panels will be on this at this website shortly, if you would like to see them. All right, everyone, have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you all.